Hello, welcome to Dungeon Dwellers Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Today is our latest movie review for Fantasy Month. Today we're reviewing Solomon Kane, the 2009 movie. I remember watching this movie back when it first came out online. I personally did not think this movie was such a big deal. I only watched it because it was made by the creator of Conan the Barbarian, Robert E. Howard, who apparently did not, just like his friend H.P. Lovecraft, did not live like a long life. Though where H.P. Lovecraft, I think H.P. Lovecraft got sick or something. I can't remember how he died, but like Robert E. Howard killed himself over his death of his mother or something like that. I can't remember. There's like a movie where like Vince D'Onofrio plays Robert E. Howard. Yeah, this movie, let's get into this movie. It's directed by Michael J. Bassett, stars James Purefoy as Solomon Kane, Max von Sydow as Josiah Kane. He's barely in the movie. I should mention that. You got Rachel Hurd-Wood as Meredith Crowthorne, who is like, apparently she's a model. You see her in the movie a little bit. How old was she in this movie? Because she looked like a teenager. But yeah, let's check this out. She's 30 now. If she's 30 now, then she would have been in 2009. She would have been at least 21. Not 21. Like 19 or some shit. So she was probably legal when this movie came out. Good. That's important to know for some reason. You got Pete Postlethwaite as William Crowthorne, who is her dad. Other notable people is that you got Mackenzie Crook as Father Michael. You'll know him from, he's barely in the movie, but you'll know him from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He was the one dude with the weird eyeball, right? You got Philip Winchester as Henry Telford, who's like, he played like Lancelot in Camelot, if you ever seen that. Jason Flemyng plays Malchiai, who's barely in the movie. And you got the Hound in this movie. What's his name? Rory something? Rory McCain as McNess. Yeah, the Hound. Sometimes he's like hard to recognize without the fucking burnt face. Yeah, so this movie is basically like an origin story for the character Solomon Kane, who Robert E. Howard published short stories of Solomon Kane in this like magazine. I read some of it. I have like the first volume. It's very episodic, and he's kind of, Solomon Kane is this, like, he's a Puritan. He's from the 1600s, early 1600s. He's like this character who used to be a pirate, but like now is like this character. He's like this avenging vigilante character who's trying to redeem himself by punishing the wicked. He's very much like he's a lot like a certain other favorite Razor Fist character called the Shadow, but even though there's a lot of similarities between Solomon Kane and the Shadow, you'll never hear Razor Fist accuse him of being a ripoff. Why? Because he likes both characters. If he hates if he hates a character, then yeah, he'll say it's a ripoff of this or it's a ripoff of that. But when he likes both the characters, no, he's not gonna say shit. Like my opinion on like character ripoffs and shit like that, it's like, look, dude, everybody takes inspiration from somebody, okay? Not everything is a ripoff. To me, something's only a ripoff when something not only shamelessly rips off a character, like takes off almost every aspect, but even rips off the story and like the character's journey. Like to me, like Black Clover is like something that I would consider a shameless ripoff of Naruto. Obviously, that to me is a shameless ripoff. What's another shameless ripoff? I can't think of any right now, besides from a shitload of comic book characters. But we don't need to get into that, because that to say like which characters are ripoff of this character is like, it's like holy shit. Like I was so surprised when I found out my favorite Batman Batman writer created the Moon Knight, which is Marvel's like shameless ripoff of fucking Batman. It's like, oh, no wonder like Doug Moench is such a good Batman writer. He created the famous like shit ripoff called Moon Knight, which I tried to get the Moon Knight book, but it was like super fucking. It was like $100 for like the essential works, so which is like, I'm not paying for that shit. Yeah, but back to my review. Yeah, basically the story is Solomon Kane is a pirate. He's raiding this Muslim castle in North Africa, where he comes in contact with the supernatural. He comes in contact with this like Dark Souls like monster with a flaming sword, who tells him his soul is marked, his soul belongs to the devil, and he's damned. So after that, a year goes past where he is staying at a monastery. He's been praying for months to try to redeem himself. Like, he's marked himself with stigmata, which stigmata, technically you can't mark yourself with stigmata. Stigmata is stigmata because, you know, it just appeared on its own. It's like a miracle, right? But like, he's marking himself with holy symbols and stuff like that. He's become a Christian Puritan. He wants to he renounced violence. He wants to be like one of the a pacifist, which we all know what happens with pacifist characters in action adventure series. I actually used to be a huge fan of pacifist characters when I was a kid. I would read like shit like Rurouni Kenshin and Trigun, because I like those characters, because obviously I grew up Catholic. I grew up in Christian church, Catholic church, so I didn't like it when characters killed people, because, you know, you go to hell if you kill people. But obviously, if you don't kill people in stories, it becomes really boring, obviously. So what happens is, like, he gets kicked out of the monastery, is forced to wander, right? And he meets up with this Puritan family. They're on their way to immigrate to the New World, America. But on the way, evil raiders kill the Puritan family, except for the mother and the daughter. They kidnap the daughter, and Solomon Kane is forced to put his peaceful ways on hold to renounce his myth of violence, so he can rescue the girl and kill the bad guys. Which the bad guys are like this masked knight, who looks like, is obviously very reminiscent of like the bad guys you see in like movies like Hawk the Slayer and Willow, if you've ever seen that movie. Which, if you don't know what Willow is basically in the 90s George Lucas ripping off Lord of the Rings. And that was a Ron Howard picture, but like George Lucas wrote it. Which, if you haven't seen Willow, watch Willow and tell me that it doesn't remind you of Lord of the Rings. You even have this huge epic fight in a tower where the two wizard characters are fighting each other by throwing them, using their powers to like throw them against the wall and shit, just like in the Two Towers or whatever Lord of the Rings movie that happens. But in that Willow, it's like two female sorcerers, well, in like, you know, Lord of the Rings, it's 2 male sorcerers. Yeah, so it turns out that Solomon Kane used to be a noble, and the bad guy is his brother, who's being controlled by this sorcerer called Malachi, who's like the only time you see Jason Flemyng, who's a pretty famous English actor. He was even in like a different movie with what's his name? James Purefoy. He was in another medieval movie, though this technically isn't medieval, but he was in another movie called Ironclad with Jason Flemyng. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. I'm trying not. I don't want to do a third take. Okay, he was in a different movie with James Purefoy called Ironclad, which was a decent movie, but it's very much like it was very low budget. But the whatever violence was in the movie was pretty good. But I don't recommend it. Yeah, so the movie has a lot of cool action scenes. You get scenes where like where Solomon Kane's not just fighting other, like, you know, bandits and shit. He also fights ghouls. There's a scene where there's like where before like Solomon Kane renounces his renouncement of violence, they find a little girl in the village that was wiped out by a witch, and it turns out the little girl was the witch. So that was a really cool scene. I liked that they didn't just like that in this world witches are real. It's not like a fake hoax. Like everybody treats like witch burnings like they're fake hoaxes today, which maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Who we'll never know for sure. Honestly, if you're a Christian and you believe in God, guess what? That means you also believe in the supernatural. So like maybe when people write books from a couple hundred years ago and they write stories about the undead and witches and shit and vampires and treat it like it's real, maybe some shit actually went down, okay? And they're not around anymore because everybody killed them. Like who the fuck knows? Like if you ever read the book which inspired Game of Thrones, not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, with Fire with Sword, they make lots of references to the vampires, werewolves, and witches. Like there's even a witch character, right? Yeah. So this movie has a lot of great action. The dialogue can be a little hokey at times. The acting I thought was good. I don't mind the whole, like, you know, there's a damsel in distress story that might piss off people today, but that doesn't bother me at all. Other than the fact that she's like really young, and it's like, but they don't treat it like, you know, like a love interest. Thank God they didn't treat it like a love interest, because that would be weird. Because this guy looks like he's 40 years old, and she looks like 15 in the movie, but she's actually, she would have been like 18, 19 according to the quick math I did. Yeah, like the only thing I thought was weird, there's like the final fight between the sorcerer and Solomon Kane, where he summons this like giant fucking monster, which you're gonna see in the video. I have a screenshot of it. That fight was pretty, I don't know, it was very super short, and like he was able to defeat the monster by killing the sorcerer, which was like, it was a stroke of luck kind of thing. It was like pretty much a Deus Ex Machina that the guy was able to defeat the monster and save everybody, which was, you're not supposed to. One of the rules of writing is that you can have Deus Ex Machinas to put your characters in danger, but you can't have Deus Ex Machinas to take your characters out of danger. But in the movie where, like, you know, it's like good versus evil, and evil is like kicking everybody's ass, and like God doesn't seem like he's helping people much, then I would argue it was like a way to like balance the scales, right? Because he's a Christian, he has like faith in God. So I'm giving this movie, I would say it's a 7 out of 10. I would say check out reviews before you watch the movie just to see if it's your thing. And also, I would say that this movie has like a Dark Souls feel to it. That's why I really like it. Okay.